Welcome to That's Good Sports. I am Brandon. Andy Reid is my disaster domino Perna.
Seriously?
The current and sad state of affairs in Denver can be traced back to a small wrench in the works, a blip in the radar, a shart in the undies, or in this case, the randomness of Roger Goodell's discipline. Today, I will reveal how Chiefs head coach Andy Reid accidentally ruined the Broncos franchise, a single move that may have my team reeling for an entire decade.
I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
This video seemed pretty appropriate for Chiefs Week. We'll investigate on That's Good Sports. Welcome to the 5th annual Manscaped sponsored holiday special. You may remember some of our worldwide hits, such as Deck the Halls with Freshly Shaved Balls, fa la 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 la. Chestnuts resting in your performance boxer briefs. The Lawnmower 4.0 trimming your pubes with ease. Oh, silent night. Quiet stroke technology. Oh, Christmas tree, how you stand tall after grooming. And now, all of these classic hits can be yours with my discount link below. Manscaped is the first all-in-one men's grooming kit and makes the perfect gift for both him and her this holiday season. Body hair trimming is safer than ever with the Lawnmower 4.0. Body wash, deodorant, nose hair trimming, it's all there. And although it's been said many times, many ways, manscaped.com/goodsports for 20% off and free international shipping and 2 free gifts when you purchase the Performance Package. Now, before I start, I need to give a huge shout out to Gary Hamilton on Twitter, who sent my writing partner Will Keys this script. Will and I worked it a bit afterwards, but Gary did the heavy lifting, is a damn good writer, so thank you, Gary. Give him a follow on Twitter. So the year was 2016. The Denver Broncos were coming off a victory in Super Bowl 50, no big deal. And we all knew that Peyton Manning, the quarterback, had reached the end of his illustrious career, mainly due to the team of archaeologists surrounding him at all times to keep his old bones in place. And that Denver would be in search of their next franchise quarterback via the NFL draft. The upcoming 2016 draft had a couple high-end prospects slated to go at the top. The Lion Saver, Jared Goff, and Taylor Heineke backup Carson Wentz. Those two QBs ultimately went first and second overall, far out of reach of Broncos GM John Elway, who had picked number 31, the final pick of round 1 that year. But there was another intriguing QB prospect still on the board. One who had mesmerizing size, swashbuckling arm talent, but who was also more of an unknown prospect. This, of course, turned out to be Paxton Lynch, the 6'7" mammoth from the University of Memphis. The Broncos and John Elway watched as the draft crept along into the 20s, and Lynch was still available. People forget the Broncos, though, were not the only team interested in Paxton Lynch. Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys also needed a QB, as Tony Romo's body was holding up like Jason Witten in the broadcast booth. Knowing others were preparing to pounce, Elway aggressively made the move up to 26 and drafted Paxton Lynch. Now, with Lynch on the roster for over a year and unready to declare him a bust, even though at this point it was fairly clear he was going to become one, the Broncos approached the 2017 NFL draft out of the QB market. Though this class wasn't as highly anticipated as others, it did produce Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, who, used to be a good quarterback. Now he's probably best at settling lawsuits versus netting a higher completion percentage. We will never know what might have happened if the Broncos did not have Lynch heading into that draft, but Elway really liked Patrick Mahomes and could have easily moved up to take him from pick 20. Kansas City at pick 27 moved up to 10 and grabbed the project quarterback out of Texas Tech. This, of course, to Broncos fans is disturbing enough, but what is worse is that Kansas City was in the market for a QB due in large part to missing out on Paxton Lynch in 2016. That's right, did I forget to mention the other team interested in Paxton Lynch was the fucking Chiefs? But more on that in a minute. Also, it was the Seahawks who owned the 26th pick that Denver traded with to select Paxton Lynch. Sorry, the Seahawks really know how to screw this franchise, don't they? Okay, anyway, Lynch did himself no favors with his reported poor work ethic. Imagine Kyler Murray's affinity for video games, but, without the ability to throw and really scramble. Things became worse when Vance Joseph took over the team in 2017 and Lynch couldn't beat out Trevor Siemian for the starting job. This, in and of itself, is bad, but teams make mistakes drafting quarterbacks all the time. This should have been the end of the Lynch era. Denver should have and could have gotten busy looking to move on to another QB heading into the 2018 offseason. What happened instead was, John Elway gave Vance Joseph and his staff another year with an ultimatum to win or be fired. The Broncos held the 5th overall pick in the 2018 draft. The 2018 draft was hyped as the year that could be on par with the legendary 1983 QB draft, the one where Elway himself was the top pick. As a quick reminder, the 2018 draft did include current Rams quarterback Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson, and Joshie Allen. In hindsight, we know that only 2 of these quarterbacks lived up to their billing, but it did have Josh Allen, a guy John Elway scouted in person at Wyoming, a guy whose combine numbers were unlike anything anyone had seen before or since. Allen, who is considered by many the best QB in the NFL right now, was right there for the taking at 5. A guy even Chiefs fans openly admit is better than Patrick Mahomes. Instead, Denver signed Case Keenum.
I'd like to introduce you to the new starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, Case Keenum,
who had just won a playoff game for the Vikings, but was not wanted back for some reason. Now, the Broncos opted for a win-now type player, selecting Bradley Chubb at 5 instead. Vance Joseph and the Broncos were 6-6 through 12 games, but lost their last 4 and Vance was fired. He was no longer having the time of his life, nor was any Broncos fan. Case Keenum, too, wasn't long for Denver, and it was back to square one at QB. Meanwhile, in old Kansas City, the Chiefs made a bold trade, sending quarterback Alex Smith, coming off his best season ever, to Washington. A move I still think the FBI should investigate as an attempted murder by the Chiefs. Regardless, Kansas City committed to the young Patrick Mahomes as their unquestioned starter. The second-year QB came out and lit the league on fire, throwing 50 touchdowns and capturing league MVP in his first full season. It was very clear they had found their guy. In 2019, Denver hired the 107-year-old Vic Fangio, a veteran DC who had been in the league since back when it was segregated. This was in contrast to the new trend in the league where anyone who had ever made eye contact with one Sean McVay was getting a head coaching job. Vic would handle the defense and a veteran QB would come in and simply be the kind of guy who just wouldn't lose games. The archetypal game manager. Enter prime Joe Flacco. Heading into the 2019 draft, Elway and Fangio would tell the media they were not taking a QB in the first round. Now this did make sense as 2019 was a draft considered mostly a 1 QB type of draft, with Kyler Murray going first overall after it was confirmed he was indeed not a Hobbit.
Bitch, if you're the Hobbit, you need to let me know right now, because I'm making a fool of myself out here.
The other quarterbacks in consideration were Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones, 2 players considered first-round projects. Jones was drafted at 6 and the late Dwayne Haskins at 15. Elway, to his credit, stood true to his word, didn't take a QB at 10, traded back to 20, and took tight end Noah Fant. What Elway did, though, was move up in the second round for quarterback Drew Lock when he felt he had too much value to pass on. Lock is a polarizing figure in Broncos country. Moments of tantalizing ability made him an intriguing prospect, but too many glaring flaws made it clear why he wasn't considered a first-round guy. That said, at the time, Broncos fans were excited about developing a player like Lock.
Drew Lock has a horse cock! Yeah, let's go! Let's get this shit!
However, Fangio, as it was later revealed, never had any interest in developing Lock, didn't want Drew Lock. Just like it was later revealed that Gary Kubiak never wanted Paxton Lynch. So Elway did a great job listening to his coaches. Who would have thought, though, that these two guys couldn't get on the same page? Put on, more like put off. Now Locke, besides having a head coach who didn't want him, had to suffer through a change at OC after his rookie year, even though he had an OC working with him, to get an OC that no one thought was a good fit for Locke's skill set in Pat Shurmur, whose only connection to Drew Lock should be through the sound of Shurmur getting locked in prison. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs finished the 2019 NFL season atop the league, emerging victorious in Super Bowl 54 against the 49ers after beating all of the greatest teams the NFL had to offer in the playoffs: the Texans, the Titans, and the Jimmy G-led Niners. But back to the Broncos. Compounding the problem at the end of the 2020 season, John Elway announced on December 28th that the entire coaching staff would be retained for 2021. Elway stated, "I'm going to give COVID one more year to try and do my job for me." Later that offseason, Elway hired George Paton to be the new general manager, but said at the time that Paton would not have authority to make staff changes until 2022. That, of course, led us to the Broncos hiring head coach Nathaniel Hackett, who some say was hired to lure Aaron Rodgers. And others, including George Paton, say he was hired on his merits as a head coaching prospect. And then, of course, in pursuit of the elusive franchise QB, they made the massive trade for Russell Wilson. So what then exactly does Andy Reid have to do with any of this? Well, in the 2015 offseason, Andy Reid and the Chiefs needed a wide receiver. They went back to one of Reid's familiar targets in Philly and ended up signing free agent Jeremy Maclin, who was a first-round draft choice of the Eagles back in 2009. However, the NFL determined that there had been illegal tampering by GM John Dorsey and Andy Reid. Reid was convicted of having conversations with Maclin about joining the Chiefs prior to the legal tampering period. Tampering, while illegal, is often tolerated and overlooked by the NFL, but in this case, Roger Goodell saw fit to punish Kansas City by stripping the Chiefs of their third-round draft pick in the 2016 draft. And as the Seahawks went on the clock with pick number 26, there were 3 teams with their eyes on Paxton Lynch waiting for the opportunity to strike: the Cowboys, the Broncos, and those Chiefs. Denver at 31 was ready to make a move, but they had to make an offer sweeter than Dallas and Kansas City. Ultimately, Denver came to the table with the 31st and 94th pick to move up to 26. Dallas could only offer pick 34 and 101, and Kansas City could not beat Denver's offer because they did not have a third-round pick. The 91st overall stripped away just days earlier for Andy Reid's talking to Jeremy Maclin. And that's our butterfly effect without the handsome Ashton Kutcher. You can talk about scouting, talent evaluation, how to build a team the right way, but many times success in the NFL just comes down to dumb fucking luck. Unable to beat Denver's offer, Dallas would wait until later in the draft and select Dak Prescott. In round 4, Kansas City, having missed out on Paxton Lynch, traded out of the first, back to pick 37, where they drafted Chris Jones, and with pick 105 in round 4, ultimately ended up getting Charvarius Ward. And what this means, the Chiefs, having missed out on a quarterback in 2016, ended up waiting until 2017, where they would get Patrick Mahomes. All because Andy Reid got his hand slapped for tampering.
Yeah, I'm not real big on that.
That's how he ruined my life as a football fan. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Again, shout out to Gary for sending us the meat of this script. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube, and maybe the Broncos will beat the Chiefs. It will be our in-season Super Bowl. Probably not, though.